Bye tomorrow.
Bye, Mark.
Bye, Brenda.
What you eating there? Hardy's biscuit?
I'm eating me some chicken. I grilled chicken thighs last night, and now I'm eating a piece for breakfast.
I love chicken
And
thighs.
and a chunk of wheat bread. Because it sounded good.
Hang on, I got an echo.
Boy, do you.
Let me cut that one off. Okay. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Hey guys, welcome in. Good morning. I think I'm live and on the air. Apparently I am. Welcome to my nightmare. Or my dream, but it's still a nightmare. I need some decor, couture decor help to come down here and somebody help me put together my library.
Morning, Carol. Morning, all. Sorry, I'm stuffing my face.
Nope, keep doing it. You just eat. We were just discussing the fact that I didn't get no breakfast this morning. Now, no, I don't want to hear it. You can get up and fix your own. Not right now, anyway. So, how you doing, my brother?
I'm good, buddy.
Are you rested up a little bit?
Yeah, I think I'm back on Wyoming time now. I think.
That's a big time shift, huh?
Yeah, going yonder was tricky.
9 hours?
It was tricky, but it was coming home was the first day wasn't bad, but the second day was like, man.
That's when it hits you. We'll talk about that in a minute. I'm going to let some folks get in here. We are going to talk about African. We're going to have travel log, but I want to talk about a lot of. Hey, look who joined us. Good morning, sir.
Yeah.
Folks.
Hi, Dr. Phil.
How y'all are?
Dr. Phil.
Dr. Phil.
Good morning, Chuck McNeil.
How are you, brother?
I'm good. I'm fed.
You're fed? I am too now.
Yeah, I just finished my breakfast dishes.
Mark just finished his chicken.
I just finished my piece of warmed up chicken thigh.
Oh, that's good stuff.
I like it. I'm a fan. I grilled up a bunch last night, and
Tina, thanks for your dedication.
I like that part of the chicken. I really like that part of the chicken.
Yeah. These days, chicken thighs are almost white meat anyway.
Well,
at least them store-bought chickens.
They're getting there.
I'm cleaning up a coffee mess here.
Uh-oh. I can take you off there if you want me to. I'll put you back in.
No, I'm good.
Okay. So Tina has said she's got the computer, 2 phones, and a TV going. We're always watching. Stop laying. Tina wants to know if some of your chickens stopped laying eggs. Is that how you got chicken thighs?
Well, when they get to the point where they stop laying eggs, they're not fit to eat.
Well, that's true.
Now then you make chicken stock out of them.
Well, that's a thought. Now Phil's got a point. You can make stock out of them.
Yeah, buddy. But we tend to give them to our son, and then next time we see him, he's like, I ain't ever eating another chicken ever again.
Making a vegan out of your son, huh?
I thought you were talking about he was going to be baiting something.
And he's like, they're just not. And I'm like, no, you can't
They can catfish.
You can't cook them like that. I usually turn them into crawfish bait personally. They make a good crawdad bait.
Did you have any luck ever catching any suckers yesterday?
We did not.
Hmm.
I got a bunch, I think, in the freezer that I need to dig around in the bottom of the freezer and find out if I got bait. But I told the girls last night we needed to save all the various chicken scraps because it was going in a trap.
Yeah. Those certain crawdads will
Because they're
certainly.
going to be expecting. We did catch several crawfish yesterday with our lures and bait. Yeah.
Of any size?
So they seemed, oh yeah, big ones. They seem to be plentiful. So, and we weren't fishing on the bottom, so there was enough of them flitting around that they were swimming up into the column and grabbing a bait. So I suspect trapping will be good.
I'm surprised that you guys don't feel them things out there on your feet. I'm sure you do some.
Oh, you do. It's like, they got them fancy spa treatments where they go and do like the minnows eat the dead skin off your feet or whatever.
Yeah.
They do that, and that's what happens every time you go swimming in the Hams Fork. But it's crawfish. It's not fish doing it. It's crawdads.
Tina says that's a bad fall from laying eggs to crawdad bait. That is a fall from grace, no, certainly.
It's still an honorable death.
Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah, you're right. As long as you're doing it for that.
I mean, if I tip over out there and feed the coyotes, I feel like that's an honorable death. So,
no, that's a good point.
In my twisted way of looking at the world.
Well, yeah, I understand. I know a few people understand.
I want them to find my pelvis like 10,000 years from now. Like, what happened to that guy?
I just saw a picture the other day I think it was on Facebook, of a beer bottle at the bottom of Challenger Deep.
Now, say that what? Say that again.
What?
A beer bottle at the bottom of Challenger Deep.
How deep is that?
35,000 feet plus. It wasn't empty, so pressure wouldn't crush an empty. So I didn't. They didn't say what brand it was. But.
So you're saying it was intact?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. If it was empty, it would be because it would equalize. Okay, gotcha.
It was probably Tusker or something like that.
That's Neanderthal grew.
It wasn't Rolling Rock because it was brown.
That's early Neanderthals lost that, and it's that's we laughing, but that's kind of disgusting when you get right down to it.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder what else is laying down in there polluting the world anyway. Wow, 35,000 feet.
Not to change the subject, I just thought I'd throw that in.
No, that's a good topic. That's a good squirrel there. I like that.
That's a big old squirrel.
That's a big old squirrel. Heck, yeah, that squirrel could lead to a lot of things. Oh, me. I'm trying to let my voice
I
clear.
need to find me some kind of a sharp object to pick a tooth.
I got one of my watches running here today.
Oh, look there. I got a toothpick.
Well, come on, focus.
Hey, there it is.
One of them. This one's got a Clinchville. I apologize for the lot today, guys. I've got to work on that.
And the count begins.
Carol Brenda will be back, and Tina should be back in a minute.
Tina's up to 1.
Unless you saw her and I didn't. She
I
just left.
bet we're awful today. I bet we squirrel all over the place.
Yeah, well, we're going to once we get started here. That's why I'm going to try to send mine in order.
And I got.
Speaking of squirrel,
I got to go do a dump run after this, so you just take your time.
Oh boy!
Oh yeah, my favoriteest place.
Where do you have to go from there?
I try not to let the gulls eat me.
Oh, another squirrel. This one is a big old squirrel here, and I maybe show a picture here. Talk about Bill. Mark's going to go see the train for us.
Good. I'm glad that's
July 23rd at 11:30 a.m. They arrive in Kemmer according to the schedule.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go in and take pictures, and if I ain't fishing or something cooler, and then I'm gonna try to get photos of them coming by the house here, because
That'd be cool.
They're gonna come right through the yard and head. I think they're stopping. I don't know if they stop in Green River or Rock Springs.
You said they were going to stop in both. It was going to be like stopping one and then hopping over to the other for a while or something.
Yeah,
they're staying in Rock Springs for a couple of days, I think.
So he's got opportunities.
Yeah, that'll be an awesome sight, because that's like.
Well, my wife is like, she grew up in Cheyenne. And she said, I saw that thing every single day. I'd never seen it operating.
Well, you can tell her she don't have to go.
No, she'll want to see it running.
Okay.
She just saw, it was like the water tower on the edge of town. You just, you saw it every day. And then
I don't know how many they had in operation.
25. There were 25 of them built. They were the biggest and the most complicated locomotives ever produced, and they were only produced for Union Pacific.
Yeah,
and there were 25 of them now, and they had them all, but one or two of them could have been early runs to, kind of like test runs. But they were a big, monstrous locomotive. They are big.
Well, they weigh over 1 million pounds.
Yeah, they weigh over 1 million pounds.
When they're in operation, that steam and smoke is rolling big time.
Yeah.
I suspect that they went through a large amount of fuel too. And in fact, when you see it, it's always its own. It's got its own tender.
Yeah,
right up by it. So they've got everything handy right there. The oil, the gas, or not the oil, the gas crap. The coal, the water, or oil if they run it on. I don't know for sure if it's running coal now or not. Up there it probably is. Wyoming would want to proudly burn their own coal, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't know what they're coming through. They're leaving. I think they leave. Well, they may have already left Cheyenne, and they're going to stop in Rock Springs and then go to Green River, which is only about 12 miles. And then they're going to go to Evanston, and then down into Utah and across Utah and into Nevada, and then they're going over to California, I think. And then they turn around and come back, and they come back into Utah. They go back through Nevada, through Elko and that country, and then they're going to go to Ogden, Utah, which is north of Salt Lake. And then they take a spur that hooks up with the Oregon short line here that we're on. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Just testing something, boys.
It's a big old beauty. It's impressive looking when it's like fired up and running. They've got a few photos of it out there from the day back in the day.
Steam engines are just fascinating to me.
Like 8 driving wheels or
Oh, I think it's got double that. Actually, I think it's got do what, Phil?
maybe 16 drivers. Then?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I have a picture of it right here. Let me see if I can pull it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, that looks like that's it. Yeah, there's 8. Yeah, there's 16 driving wheels on it. It's got 2 trucks of 8.
Yeah.
That's and those are, and if you walked up to those drive wheels, they'd probably be over your head. Maybe not yours, Phil, but mine and Mark's, I bet they would be.
They're giant.
Yeah.
Yeah. And those things were built specifically to haul heavy freight through the Northern Rockies back and forth, and that's what they were built for. That's why Union Pacific is the only company that ever owned them, only railroad that ever owned them. And can I? I can, Tina. I was going to do that. Thanks for reminding me.
I'm surprised they didn't have something similar that ran that rail line that goes along I-40 in the south, because you go through some pretty high country.
There's a big loop there somewhere. Isn't it Tahatchee Loop or something?
Yeah,
where they loop around going up a grade.
Yes, that's true.
So was that a bald one or a Lima locomotive?
I thought they were bald ones. I'm trying to pull it up. Hang on, bear with me. Or Carol, whoever asked me to. I was going to do that. And then I got busy. Well,
Tim and
I'm trying to open a picture and get you a big enough picture. Oh, you can buy these things, Phil, for in railroad modeling. And a Lionel model of this steam locomotive with its tender is $2,300. Well, actually, it's $2,400.
That'd be in an O gauge.
Yeah, I think their stuff is all O gauge.
I think it's all
$2,400 for a model train.
Yeah, isn't that something? Hang on, present. I got to remember how to do this, Tina. I didn't do this in a while much.
Tim and I went to an O. Winston Link photography exhibit at what was that, Tusculum?
Yeah, Tusculum. That's right. I forgot that. That's right. I forgot that's where that was at.
It's been a few years ago. Did we go up there on bikes or did we drive up there? I can't remember.
I'm not sure either now.
It was cool though.
There's the big boy bucket list. Yeah, I'd like to see it.
Well, it's going to run from Chicago down to Texas later in the fall.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, and but it's not going to come anywhere close to us, but it will cut through somewhere in Arkansas, which I think is probably the western end of Arkansas. But,
well, heck, that's just one state over.
Yeah.
There you go. There's a good example of the drive wheels.
Yeah.
That's at the bottom. You got to remember that's at the bottom of the train. I mean, all the locomotive, oh crap, Phil, help me. The boiler and all that stuff is above this.
Yeah.
And so you can imagine there's at least 2 or 3 more of him going straight up, probably.
But I bet they can't stop that if there's a herd of antelope on the railroad tracks.
I bet you're right. At least not very fast.
Although they probably can outrun that train. But
yeah, maybe. Let me see what else I got here. That's the same picture. Let me see if I can open up something else.
Well, hello, Miss Gigi. Are you interested in trains? Did you come to see about the big boy?
I don't think that thing could go around on a Norfolk and Western track over here in Virginia anywhere.
I doubt it. I'd say it can't make corner clearance. It'd just be my guess. Yeah, that's not a very good picture.
Yeah, so just east of us, about
Actually, that's it. Right. Actually, hang on a minute. That is actually the train right there.
Yeah, 4014's the number on
Yeah.
it.
And but that's shrunk down by a telescopic lens, and so that's really not a great picture of it. But
look at the dude, the engineer hanging out the window there.
there's three of them hanging out that window, but only one of them has on bib overalls, so he'll be the boss.
That's right.
He'd have to be the boss.
They'll be them striped bibs too, them fancy bibs.
Look at the back of this thing. Look at all the valves. I know some of you guys are probably thinking, what do we want? Boring valves. But
I like that coal door.
yeah, that's one of those that pops. I don't know how that worked, but they hit that bar, obviously. Maybe they hit it with their hip or kicked it with a boot, and it just flips open and then it just falls down when they throw in a shovelful.
And there's
pretty good idea.
The fires of Hades pouring out on you while you're.
I would have thought that thing would have like an auger feeding it, from the tender.
Well, that might have made a lot of sense, but I don't know if I've ever seen one that fed that way unless it was front mounted or something.
Yeah.
Think about how much, like you had to adjust all those valves and you had to know what was happening and
each one of them.
And each one, I mean, look at all of them.
How'd you like to go for a check ride on that?
Well, look, and if you look real close, a lot of them don't. Well, maybe they've got nameplates on them, but you can't see them very well if it does. And how would you like to have to adjust every one of those and then realize the one you missed is the one that stops the train or something?
It's a meltdown.
You gotta crank that one just a little bit.
I don't know how well you guys can see that. There's a side that looks like it's been running. That looks a little dirty. That is a big old. I mean, that's boiler and burner, everything from there.
Big old locomotives. What that is?
That might be Mark. That might be where it sets and where it sets up in Cheyenne.
Yeah, it's just sitting outside. It's been sitting outside forever. And like I said, my wife's like, yeah, I saw that thing every single day of my life growing up. That it was just it was like the Yorktown. It was just dry dock there in Cheyenne.
Yeah, there's one in Knoxville that was in a park, where the fair and stuff was or is, and by the zoo in Knoxville, and they had it mounted as a display. But by the time, when we were there, which was in the late 90s or early aughts or somewhere in there, down there, that thing sets up on a little hillock, and it's pretty much trapped there now. All they could do with it, I think, is lift it off by a crane. So it's sitting on tracks, but it's not. It's not dry. It won't drive.
With a cutting torch.
Do what?
Lift it off in pieces with a cutting torch.
Yeah. Let's see if this will play and if you can hear any of it. Can you hear that?
No.
No?
We don't ever hear your
I know.
Lucky strike.
Your lucky strike there, Tree.
Everybody in here will probably smoking one too.
Oh, hey, that Robert Montgomery, that's the actor.
Robert Montgomery.
Yeah, that's Robert Montgomery, yeah.
What did he used to play in? Was it
something cool, probably?
No, it was one of them sitcom things. What it wasn't the one with shoot, not June Allison.
I know you're
Donna Reed.
Donna Reed. Okay, yeah, the Donna Reed show.
Yeah, wasn't he in the Donna Reed show?
I think so.
Yeah. Anyway. Squirrel.
the encyclopedia of all knowledge.
Sometimes sometimes there's bad info in there. So
I haven't seen it very often.
Anyway, look it up, guys. If you're interested in any kind of railroad history, Chuck, maybe you are. I don't know, or maybe Carol. That's would be a good story somewhere along the way for kids. Maybe I don't know if they've made a big boy story, but that's quite the. Ever since we had that stream with the copyrighted music, it's like YouTube says, nope, the Tennessee Bear can't act responsibly. What makes you think that, Tina? You're right, though. That is when it got cut out, isn't it?
Was it copyright music or Looney Tunes?
Might have been Looney Tunes. It was Looney Tunes.
We about got banned from the World Wide Web on that one.
Somebody else, I got popped for something else too that was silly. Well, they're all, not all, but there's a lot of things that are silly, but I don't know what else you do about it. Anyway, that's not the point. But anyway,
I considered ours free advertisement for Looney Tunes.
There you go.
Because
nobody else is
only being complimentary and exposing the world to the grandness of a Looney Tune.
Tina, you're absolutely right. I was going to put that on the screen.
Yes, it was Looney Tunes. That's what got us kicked out.
Hey, looky there. Ian B is with us today.
Holy buckets.
Yeah, holy buckets. Indeed. Yeah, Tina, that's the way it is on an airplane, too. I mean, if you step up into some cockpits, and especially older airplanes, they had, the ceiling's covered with switches, the sidewalls are covered with switches, and you think, how in the world do you ever learn all this crap? And then there's the instrument panel. And those used to be much busier than they are today, because today everybody uses something that looks like an iPad, just about. Hey, Dave, Face Mountain Dave Contreras. Well, I can finish this, but I'll never get it out. But you learn that you have to pull a brake or something on it. You just kind of know where it's at. You reach for it after a while. But when you first start working on something like that, you'll search and search and search before you ever find the right switch. Ian, buddy, it's been too long.
Yeah.
So good to see you, buddy. Are you going to be able to stay with us, or are you passing through? Diane, I have to admit that there's a certain presence in the room I'm missing. Is he out working? If he's not, he better be bringing donuts.
He's probably on a donut run.
Yeah.
Or bringing some bacon. Only the good stuff.
Well, let's get on with the story here today. I'll save you for a moment. What we're going to do today, guys, because this is going to be a big trip. So in a week or two or whenever, at Mark and Shauna's convenience, of course, we'll do another round of pictures and things they got to see. Bacon donuts, yes. Maple bacon in particular, yeah. And we'll do pictures another week after you guys get a chance to, start putting them together. So today, what I want to talk about is your trip, your travel, talk some about the country in general, and some of the things you did and saw. And I'm going to actually try to keep it sort of in line. I'm at least going to direct us with questions. Let me see if I can put you.
You don't have,
I can make you big.
We're fine, right the way we are.
Now that made you little. I don't want you little.
Just leave us like that. That'll work. Then I can see fella.
Yeah, I'll keep it like it is. So anyway,
How come you're the
you guys
river
know
bear today?
Mr. Zorns took a
Whirlwind
maybe once in a
adventure.
while, huh?
I did a whirlwind adventure.
He did. He went exploring, and what used to take years and years to get there and back, he went and did in a couple of weeks. So
It still took years and years, it seemed.
I'm sure it did. We're going to talk about that in a minute too. So basically, what I thought we would do is just talk about your travel. Like I said, starting with getting ready. And the first question I had on my list was I was going to suggest that we start at your house, just start from the beginning, and but discuss the fact that there were some departure time conflicts, I believe.
Well,
not,
yeah,
maybe not conflict, but
there was a grandchild involved.
yeah. Anyway,
so we just packed all our stuff and headed east towards. We had to go meet our some of our party. My buddy Terry Creekmore's house in Livermore, Colorado. That's where we were gonna. That was our jumping off spot, and we were gonna drive from Terry's house together down to Denver and fly out of Denver when we started. But we had a granddaughter that was trying real hard to meet her grandparents right when we were leaving. And so we stopped at the hospital and we're, going to delay a while. And she was in there with her arms and legs out, like holding on inside and like, no, I'm not coming out, which means she's going to be stubborn. And we hung out there for an hour or two, and it was obvious she was going to wait just a little while. And so we took off and went to Livermore, and which is a 5-hour drive from our house. And we got about 5 minutes from Terry and Lynn's house, and that child appeared. Our fourth granddaughter, Absorka Rose Lockwood, and she's perfect. She came out fully baked, first one. Every other one of them was preemie.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And this child came out, and she was just perfect, and she's doing great. So yeah, that just delayed us slightly. It didn't impact the trip at all, because we didn't fly out till the next morning. And then jumped on an airplane in Denver and flew to Atlanta, Georgia, and then got it on another dang airplane and flew a long, long, long way.
How long were you in Atlanta?
I think we had like a 4-hour layover there, maybe 5. So we flew, the flight from Denver to Atlanta was 3.5 hours maybe. We had a good tailwind, and then we stayed there a little, nothing was rushed. It was perfect from that standpoint. I don't mind sitting there and waiting at the gate if they're not hurrying me up and making me run through the airport like O.J. Simpson. So I don't mind that part. Then we hopped on that next flight, which was about as long as I want to spend in an airplane by far.
Yeah, well, I know you pretty damn well, and that plane probably had a couple hundred people at least. If it was packed, it's 3-something, I believe, maybe 350. It was a French airplane, Phil, a 350-900, I think. Airbus, yeah.
It was a big old tube full of seats.
And people.
And people, human beings.
Well, see, I know that you don't care that much about being that close to that many people. So I can't imagine that being all that pleasant.
Well, it wasn't. I was on an aisle. We were in the kind of that center bank of seats, 3 across, and it wasn't that awful. I just stuck my earphones in and watched TV for the next 16 hours.
Did you sleep at all?
Maybe a couple hours on the way over, but not much. I was pretty jacked. And
I was
it was a real smooth flight. We got right over the dang Bermuda Triangle, and we hit a bit of turbulence through that zone right there. I was watching it. You got that screen, you can watch your flight progress on a map, and we were right over the Bermuda Triangle, and it started getting pretty bumpy, and I'm like, oh, here we go. We're going to be a statistic. And then we passed that and went on we didn't hit any more turbulence till we hit the equator, and it got a little bumpy there. And then it was smooth, just like a baby's backside, all the way to Johannesburg. But it was, 15 hours over. 16 coming back.
What kind of crowd was going over? I mean, I can imagine there being like a section where
35% of the people in that airport had on safari clothes.
That's what I was getting ready to say. And maybe have a special seating area for those that have already sprayed the panther piss on them to hide their sin.
The guy that was sitting next to us, we were sitting in a row of 3 seats, and the guy sitting next to Shauna was going to Botswana on a photo safari, and we at some point in the middle of the flight, I had a little scotch, and Shauna had a little cup of wine, and I'd got up to walk around. I came back and sat down. I hit my whiskey and knocked it into the floor and poured it all over her stuff.
No.
And the
damn it.
The jumping back, moving position. I reached over to grab it so it couldn't fall, and I hit her wine and poured it all over the guy going to Botswana.
You save your whiskey though?
No.
Oh man.
But they brought me 2 more.
Well, that worked out.
It was they were good to us on the flight. But that was the only incident that occurred on the airplane that I'm aware of.
Well, that's good. I was looking at that airplane before you left, and that was one of those planes that if you can afford first class or whatever they call that class, you can actually get almost like a cot. You get
they had sleeping berths up there.
Yeah, sleeping berths. Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought about you when I saw that.
And as you walked into the air, of course, they got to board before anybody else did.
Oh,
and you walk down that aisle, and they're giving you the stink eye because you're just not worthy of their presence.
Flicking boogers at them.
And there was a whole pile of South African PHs on that in first class, which professional hunters, the guide dudes, they were all in their gear, and they had been to some convention or something in America, a SHOT Show or something. I don't know what. But
Safari International used to take people and do shows like that.
There was a pile of those guys, and they were all sitting in first class, and they didn't look down on you, but everybody else did.
Yeah. I'm proud they got to sit in first class.
They just looked like they were just darn glad to be there, and most of them were pretty tipsy before we even got on the airplane. So
maybe you should have asked one of them to swap seats with you.
But yeah, I mean, we were in quote unquote Comfort Plus, and it was, I don't know,
Did I put that up there? I think I did.
it wasn't too comfortable.
Probably means 32-inch pitch instead of 30.
Yeah. All I know is on the way home, the crew was mostly South African on the way home when we came home. And the ladies that, delivered you all your meals and your drinks and whatnot were not very good at driving their carts, because they tore the hide off my elbow more than once that night.
Oh. Well, that's sad.
That'll wake you up in the morning or in the middle of the night, or
Cart to your elbow.
the old cart to the elbow trick.
Yeah, they're usually moving up and down that aisle too. They're not, depending on what the time it is. But hey, Carol, we're gonna do that. We're gonna see photos. Oh, I think she's actually making fun here, because the photos might be, if the operator was under wine or whiskey influence, the photos might not, they might be funny.
And the hilarious part about it is that, we stayed at a motel in Johannesburg when we got there, because we landed about, I don't know what time it was. It was in the evening, and we went to a motel, stayed overnight, and they came picked us up the next morning, and we drove north 5 hours. And the dude was at the motel, the guy that I spilled the wine on, and then we got up in the morning for breakfast and to get ready to meet our ride, and there he was again, sitting at the next table at the breakfast, and we laughed and giggled about it. And then we laughed and giggled about, wouldn't it be interesting if we, like, when we go home, there he is again, And sure enough, there he was. And he sat right beside my wife, just like and I'm like,
Deja vu.
I'm like, sir, I'm going to try real hard not to spill anything on you this trip home. He was from Oregon.
Oregon.
Ain't nothing growing in Oregon, but
Was he wasn't a professional?
oh, he wasn't from Oregon. He was from Atlanta, because we left him in Atlanta.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and let's back up a minute, because I just remembered something else. You had there was actually 6 of you that knew each other, at least, that went down. I don't know if it was a group thing or not, but the other 2 guys, they went a different route and a different airline and ran into some other issues.
Yeah, so we only knew Len and Terry. Terry was best man wearing a dress with me, a kilt at our wedding, and his wife Lynn, who's a veterinarian, and then she had a gal that she'd gone to vet school with that had become a veterinarian in Wyoming and had sold her practice and was like a multi-gazillionaire now. And her and her daughter went over with us, and then not with us on the same flight, but to get, part of our group. And they ended up going and doing a horseback safari in Kenya after this one. So they're home. I think they're home now, but they were over there a long time.
That would be fun, and you'd be riding home there.
I would love to have done that. And then it was horseback, and then you went and you just slept in wall tents out there. They had camps set up. You rode between camps and acted as lion bait the whole time.
Well, I was getting ready to say, after reading
that's
the
big time lion country up there where they were at.
I was just thinking, after reading Lions of Tsavo and Death in the Tall Grass and Death in the Dark Places, I'm not sure I'd feel that comfortable in a wall tent in the middle of Africa anymore.
But they anyway, that was them. But the other 2 people were Terry's farrier, horseshoer, who's also married to a veterinarian, and their son, and so it was Tyler and his son Levi, who's about 20, and they flew, and the girls, those two gals that I mentioned earlier, flew with them, and they went to Newark, and then to Frankfurt, Germany, and then down to Johannesburg. And Tyler and Levi were the only ones that took firearms with them to hunt with. So I took a bow, and it was just in my check-on bag, takedown bow with a bunch of arrows that Delta considers it sporting equipment, and you don't have to do any special stuff like you do with firearms. Firearms are a big deal to take with you. So
before you pass that up, I thought it quite interesting that how lax they were or seemed to be with you with the bow, because that is considered recreational equipment and not hunting gear like a rifle would be.
right.
But it could be in your hands, it'd be just as deadly. I mean,
Well, I built that little takedown bow, and I shoved it in the quiver, in my back quiver, and then I had arrows in a hard plastic box, a couple dozen of them, and I borrowed a guy's big suitcase that he had taken his bow over with, and he's like, I just checked it on. He's like, there was no issue at all. And so I'm like, well, because the guy that we were going to hunt with, he's like, you might want to go ahead and do the whole firearms thing. And my buddy was like, that you don't need to do that. Read the rules. And so I read the rules, and I'm like, I don't have to do it. So I didn't, and I didn't have any issues at all. I had a bunch of knives and things in there with it, and I mean that was on the check on. It wasn't carry on.
Yeah, check on. That's what I thought.
And so, so I didn't have any issues.
Welcome in,
I was
John.
worried about losing that bag, like
Yes.
somebody was going to steal it. But
I got you. I know how that.
But it didn't. We didn't have any problems there. But Tyler, when he got to Newark, they darn near took him to jail, and he had followed all the rules, but he had a gun, but it wasn't in his hands. I mean, it was checked on, legally, the whole process. He had all the paperwork, and they gave him quite a hard time there in Newark. And then he flew. They flew, like I said, they flew to Frankfurt, then they flew to South Africa, and
they got a really cut up trip. Then that was
which was, I mean, their longest flight was 9 hours from Frankfurt.
Which is still a long time,
but it's better than 16.
Yeah.
But anyway, they get to South Africa, and everything was fine. Tyler had taken a compound bow in a hard compound bow case, and it didn't show up for a little while. So we had to wait around there for a little while waiting on his bow to show up. And it finally did.
Yes,
but that wasn't any kind of legal deal or anything. It just didn't get there as quick as everything else. They didn't have any issues at all getting their firearms in their possession at the airport. We went up and did our deal, and had a wonderful trip, and then we came back to Johannesburg, and they were checking that you got to meet special people to get firearms on the airplane. And there was a little dude that so Tyler had inadvertently left 5 rounds of ammunition in his binoculars case. And that became a big old deal. And the little dude that was checking in the firearms, who was a problem last year for Terry, said, "You're
Yes,
going,
I kicked my-
you're going to prison over this deal. You're going to prison like now, unless you give me $150."
And then he says, "You can go to prison with me."
And Tyler was like, "Well, I might give you 50." And he goes, "Well, you meet me in that head over there in the restroom and give me $100." And so he met him in there and gave him bribe money. And then the little dude like came over to, we were standing in a cluster there saying our goodbyes. And the little dude came over and he didn't know what was going on. He didn't know if Tyler was telling tales or whatever, and he came over and he shook his hand. He's like, "Are you okay, sir? Are you okay?"
Yeah, I bet.
And then he like turned to shake my hand, and his fingers like touched the tips of my fingers, and I was like, "Go ahead and put your hand in there, buddy, because I'm gonna mash it." Because he was a little bitty dude, and I was gonna like grab him like a set of tongs. And he looked in my eyes and he was like, and he just backed off and went away. And we were all going to go to like a Johannesburg prison or something, probably over the deal. So
Yeah, it's probably a good thing you didn't do
it was just, it was just, it was like, really? And so then Tyler and Levi get on their airplane to back home and stopped in Frankfurt again. And they pulled him out of line and field stripped him because he had a tube of Crest in his carry-on bag, and they thought it was plastics.
Explosives.
He had some C4 in his bag, And he got back to the States, and he's like, "Oh my God."
I got pulled out of line one day for excuse me. Just 1 minute. Go ahead and talk.
Well, Dad walked into the El Paso airport when we went to pick you up one time, and he had a pistol. And I'm like, what are you thinking of? Where'd you go? You're muted.
Oh yeah, I'm muted. Yeah, well he had, and the second time around he had a pocket full of shells. That was back. Unfortunately, that's back.
That was pre 9/11, so it wasn't that big a deal. But
yeah, they still wouldn't have liked it. But
no, he was behind the gate, so I mean, it was.
Yeah, but they didn't.
Or he was past security.
I don't let everybody back in there though. We used to let anybody go through the first security as long as you were with somebody, I guess, and
right.
or had a ticket. But back then they didn't haze it.
I mean, there wasn't security back then.
No, yeah,
you walked right out the gate.
Yeah, our guys used to get on airplanes to go on Squirrel to get on maintenance trips with a tool bag full of just all kinds of tools, just crammed full of everything that you need to destroy and take apart an airplane. And 5 easy lessons on your way to Frankfurt. But that was back then. Today is just not like that.
Yeah.
So let's back up just a minute. I would ask you to shut your eyes, but you probably.
Well, this part of the discussion is totally taking too long.
Well, I don't want to talk about. We're done with that part, unless you think of another funny story. But when you actually saw Africa or touched down over there, what was your first impression? Did you feel the old man over there? I mean,
so my first sight of Africa was it had turned daytime, and I wasn't sitting at a window seat, but I was like leaning over people looking out their window, and we were crossing the Namib Desert in Namibia.
That's a rough one.
And then we hit the Kalahari, and I was just like, "Oh my God, look at this, look at this!" And then we got to South Africa, and the clouds it was overcast, so I couldn't see the ground anymore. But They got good. They got great big giant cumulonimbus puffy clouds that look like mashed taters. And so we landed in Johannesburg, or Jayburg, as us travelers like to call it. We landed there, and it was dark. It was getting, it was almost black dark by that point. And we were in the airport, but it was pretty quick getting the airport was. It was a big airport, big international airport, but it was real open, and they had, a lot of folks working, and it was pretty quick and efficient getting out of that airport. It wasn't that way coming back into it, but it going out was pretty easy. And we got outside, and everybody was always trying to grab your bag and then ask you for money. Terry said, don't make eye contact with any of these guys or you're going to end up giving them a tip. If, they're going to try to take your bag from you and wheel it out to wherever, and then expect some dinero. And
yeah, unfortunately, that's become all over the world. I mean, you hear that people go to the islands and stuff. First thing they get off a plane, they're assaulted by women wanting to do their girls' hair, braid their hair and do that.
Yeah.
And it's all for money, or take your bags, or, I mean, that's become a.
So I ended up like some guys, like there was two little guys came along and they were loading that big old heavy oversized bag I had with all my hunting stuff in it. They loaded that in the deal and I gave them a tip for that. And then a bunch of their pals showed up and like, well, give us a tip too. And I'm like, you didn't do nothing for me. I was like, vamos.
Speaking your at South African.
Yeah, I was speaking that Afrikaans like Mexican, vamos. I literally said that. It just was like, I've said that a lot in Mexico.
Right.
And it was just like came natural, but they got the point. But then after that, we went to the motel and service and the respect of those people for travelers and how they treated us was just golden. I mean, it was amazing. Nobody was pushy or bossy or trying to, extort you for whatever. It was good.
Now, is that particular motel, hotel, whatever it's called, a hotel, I'm sure, but was that specifically something that was used by the safari people, or in this case, Stanley?
Yeah. So Stanley uses, that's he has you book into that motel, which is right by the airport. It's real close. It takes like 5 minutes to get there from the airport or less. And then he's got a company that with vans and trailers that come and pick up, meet you the next morning and haul you up to his place.
What was that trip like between I don't know what kind of vehicle you were traveling in. Were you in an air conditioned van or were you?
Yeah, we were in an air conditioned van and had a trailer. We were dragging a trailer, and all 8 of us were on that in that one rig. And the dude was like Mario Andretti on steroids. He drove super, super fast. And there's all these toll. The main road from Johannesburg up to Polokwane, which is not too far. It's about, I don't know, an hour from where we were going. It's all kind of like interstate. It's a 4-lane highway, pretty well maintained, but it's a toll road. And there were toll booths places all along. And of course, these professional drivers are like, they've got a card or whatever. They just like swipe a deal and move on. Everybody else was sitting in line being checked by the South African police. And then the funny thing to me was that the police, there were police everywhere, pulled off on the side of the road. And if they want to like stop you, they're literally sitting in, a vehicle on the side of the road, and they're out a foot. And if they want to stop a motorist in whatever lane, they just walk out and point at you. They get right in front of you and point at you. And our driver whipped around those guys so fast, like, and we got pointed at twice. And he
No,
just
no,
like got over in the other lane and went around them and kept on hauling. And I don't know if they don't have fuel for those vehicles or what, but it was crazy.
They didn't come after you.
They didn't.
No, and that was his buddies that went on a different flight, and they went from Newark to Frankfurt, Germany, and then down to South Africa. Probably flew about the same many hours, but Mark went from Atlanta to Johannesburg direct, and it was a 16-hour flight. An interesting thing, Phil, you probably understand this better than I did. The trip, Delta apparently has a running bus or has a service to and from South Africa, and the one going over is always numbered Flight 200, and the one coming back is always Flight 201.
Yep.
And I guess that makes sense. I just didn't realize they.
Yeah,
it always was.
They're running that every day.
Well, it's they're assigned a route, and that's what that flight number is that route. So,
some reason I guess I thought it would change every flight, but so it makes it easy to keep up with. Tina, I actually pulled them up on radar, or not radar, but a satellite deal where you can follow your flight path.
Yeah, it's Flight Aware.
Yeah, and I followed Mark all the way over, and then part of the way back to where they were at in the sky. So, anyway, what were you gonna say, Phil?
I said that's Flight Aware is what I was using.
Yeah.
With it, it follows I don't know if it uses the ADS-B info or if it's GPS stuff, but it'll track the flight right along as it goes.
Hey, John, how were you stationed over there, or do you spend most of your time in Wyoming? So anyway, you got out and you drove up there. That was were you able to see anything on that trip, or everything just going by?
We were seeing all kind of cool stuff and humans and neat little farms and things and ranches along the way up, and lots and lots of zebu and Brahma cattle. That's kind of all the cattle that they raise down there are kind of Brahma.
The zebu's the one with the huge horns.
Yeah. And so they're all that type of cattle that are, they're adapted to that kind of living. Right. Most of the cattle were Brahma or Brahma crosses, and they all looked real good. And the country's pretty. It's the dry season right now. It's winter, and they don't get much rain. They said in a couple months it'll be really dry and it won't look near as lush. But there was a lot of grass and it was pretty lush. And of course, it's all thorn scrub, bush belt stuff that except along the rivers where it's jungle. And so on our way up on that interstate, every now and again you'd look over and like, oh, look, zebras, or oh, heck, there's an eland. So we saw a few things. Blessbok and zebras and an eland or two, or maybe a kudu on the way up to Polokwane, where we got off that main road. And then the road condition it was paved up to the town of Aldays, and then it was dirt from there on. And I think the dirt road, which was badly washboarded, was way smoother than the paved road from Polokwane to Aldays. It had holes in the road like 3-4 feet deep, and you just kind of drove where you could not to hit one of those big potholes. And the ranchers up there all come out with dump trucks every now and again and fill those holes in with dirt and rocks and pour water on it, and it turns kind of to concrete. And that's the only road maintenance they've got in that North Limpopo country.
I bet that mud is unyielding when it's wet, though. I bet that's the god awfulest gumbo.
It's red dirt. It's their soils are a lot of sand, but there was some clay in there too, and I'm sure it turns to hard stuff. But it's once we got through Polokwane and started heading towards Aldays, we just saw critter after critter after critter. I mean, there was just animals running everywhere and crossing the roads, and baboons and whatever. It was crazy. I was just rubbernecking the whole time. It was just crazy.
No telling how many birds you were missing along the way.
We saw, hornbills and things like that. Were just like, oh, look, it's a hornbill. Oh, look, it's another hornbill. Oh, look, it's a hornbill. And that's one of the drives we did on the dirt roads one day. Shauna saw ostriches, and she got to see a gemsbok. I didn't see a gemsbok the whole time I was over there, except one dead one. So it was a wild place. You look at the soil, you go on these big properties. See, we were hunting a place that's about 12,000 acres. And then we had 8 other properties that we could hunt, the smallest of which was 6,000. And then a big part of the Limpopo River that was just miles and miles and miles of jungle habitat. And we went to a lot of those properties, and you just saw Cape buffalo everywhere, and zebras and kudus, and but the ground there, I've never been in a place where there wasn't 1 centimeter of the ground that didn't have some kind of ungulate track on it. I mean, you'd see spots where there were like everything from giraffes and buffalo to dikers and steenbok and little tiny thing, it was nuts. Baboon tracks and leopard tracks and hyena tracks. It was cool. It was magic is what it was. It was magic. It wasn't cool. It was magic.
Sometimes you and Shauna were on different safaris, if you will. Not always together then.
Well, no. I mean, there was a couple times where I was, I guess so.
Well, I don't mean all the time.
When I went to hunt up on the river, me and my 23-year-old hard charging professional hunter guy, and who's a very mature man that has been doing this a long time, since he was like 3 or 4 years old, literally. He and I and our tracker, Miami, went north up to the Limpopo River, and Lujan, my PH, he said, your wife's not going to like wading through the briars like we're going to go through today. And so we encouraged her to stay back at at the facility at the lodge, which was gorgeous. And there, you could go sit in a blind and watch critters or, look at monkeys or whatever you wanted to do.
Right there from the lodge. Sort of like an Animal Kingdom lodge. There, the guys that's been to Disney World. Sort of like an Animal Kingdom lodge, but real. I mean, truly real. John? Oh, well, John had a question. Many snakes, vipers, black mambas, and other killers. And Mark's got an interesting story about snakes.
So I was really looking forward to encountering some snakes, maybe a Mozambique spitting cobra, or which bit my PH when he was 6 years old in his bed in his bedroom, and he darn near lost his arm over the deal. But it bit him in the stomach and it bit him in the forearm.
Bit him twice.
His daddy came in with a rifle and said, "Shoot that snake." He gave the rifle to Lujan and he shot that snake. And he's like, "Okay, let's go to the hospital."
Made him shoot it and then took him to the hospital.
There are our kind of people. So I was sitting in a blind the very first morning we were hunting. And this bird comes walking out of the thorn scrub down to this water hole we were sitting at. And it's like 4 feet tall. And it's a bird called a Cory bustard. And it's the heaviest flying bird on the planet, 40 pounds. And they get up and fly, and they'll fly a mile. It's not like they just flush and, fly 50 yards and land. They'll fly long distance.
Unlike a turkey who gets back on the ground.
But they got a big old heavy hooked beak like an eagle. And it came walking past the one of the ports looking out of the blind. And I'm like, what is that? And it walked over to this little mopani tree right beside the blind. And it looked up on the bark of that tree and it reached up and it grabbed a snake that was about 20 inches long. And based on the color of it, it could have been a juvenile mamba, a black mamba, just by the color. But I didn't get to see it long enough. I mean, that thing grabbed that snake by the head and swallowed it down like a piece of spaghetti. And I'm like, good God. And we saw lizards all the time and turtles pretty regularly. Turtles when we went to river country, there was always turtles. And the crocs were really not very helpful. I had one little mild encounter with a crocodile, but I didn't even get to see it very well. Just like the back of its tail as it slipped into the river. But I mean, there were a lot of herps, but we didn't see any snakes. They had a cobra in camp or something a couple weeks before we got there, but I didn't see. I was looking for them too, and I just didn't.
Yeah, that's so. What I told somebody that one day.
And it was freezing cold over there. It was like it'd get down to like 50 at night and 80 in the daytime. And all those people were wearing coats. And I'm like, well, heck, it's summer at home and it's not this warm at home. We had one of the days we were conversing with Caitlin as often as we could. She was watching the place, and she one day it was 90 degrees here in Wyoming, and the next day the high was 44 and the low was 27.
Gee.
And it killed my potato plants.
I don't see how anything can grow like that with weather extremes. That's terrible.
They don't grow very well. The plants in the greenhouse got shocked by all the heat because we have most of our garden in the greenhouse, and it got too hot even, and she was pouring the water to them and trying to keep them cool as she could. But it got real hot that week, and then it just like the something happened and the bottom dropped out. And my potatoes had come up and were a foot tall. And then we had that one cold day, and it shocked all those tops. Now they're back now. I guess it didn't kill the plants. It just made them sorry to be around for a while. So
yeah. And Tina, I want to address. Oh, not Tina, but whoever. I keep cutting myself off, if you've noticed, and that's because I'm trying to get used to a new desk and a new tray for my computer, and I keep trying to shove it back under my desk, and when I do, it catches on my mouse and turns my mouse off and kicks me off, and I have to come back. So you'd think by now, after 2 days of this, or using it here, I'd get used to it, but I hadn't yet. I was used to mine at home, just pushing my tray out of the way and getting up and stuff, and now I try to do that and it jams. It's not quite a good fit, but anyway. So I've said that part. Now that's why I keep bumping off and on. My own, as Jimmy Buffett would say, it's my own damn fault. And what kind of stuff did you guys? I mean, how the food? Did you find most of the food acceptable to you? I mean, was it spicy? Was it bland? Was it?
It was. It's hard to say. They made food for us that was, some of it was just fantastic, and they took such good care of us and didn't let us do anything, which aggravated me. So I couldn't even get out and open a gate, for crying out loud. You know, and after like day 4, I'm like, I'm over you guys, like trying to baby me on this stuff. I'm getting out and getting the gate because I'm handiest to get the gate, and I'm not driving.
Well, you've been a cowboy most of your life, you know.
Yeah, and it's just, I'm just like, you're driving a truck, you don't get the gate. The guy sitting next to you gets it. And so,
right.
And then my tracker guy was always in the bed of the vehicle, and they're great big tall vehicles, and you got to climb, and they got seats back there, and you got to climb in and out. And, you know, it was like getting on a jungle gym or something every time to get in the back of the vehicle. And so I just would hop out and grab the gate. But anyway, the food, back to the food, they provided every meal, and they cooked wonderful food, but their food's different. They got a lot of, they like sauce on stuff, on just about everything, some kind of sauce. And then they got a lot of sauces on the table that I'd never heard of, some of which would set you on fire. And, but they had sauces from around the world, you know, there on the table, or they didn't have ketchup or mustard. They had their own versions of that kind of stuff, and it just tasted different. And they don't believe in cooking bacon or potatoes to where they're done.
Yeah.
So they would, you know, we would have like chicken fried steak. They made us chicken fried steak a couple times, which was great. And it was always kudu or impala chops or something like that. We were eating almost exclusively wild game, and much of which we had harvested. And so it was pretty fresh. They like to hang it a little while, but we ate a lot of fresh meat. But their potatoes, they would just, you know, if they made like a French fry like deal, they were mushy. You know, they didn't cook them, in my opinion. And bacon was just rubber. It was good. It tasted good, but it was kind of hard to chew. It was rubbery. They didn't crisp it up, you know.
Yeah, different things. I was going to ask you something before I forgot about it, and that getting in and out of the truck to open the gate got you a nickname, didn't it?
Well, I mean, they call so the Afrikaan people, at least the rural Afrikaan people, for a man that's 10 years or older than yourself, you call him uncle, and they and it's a sign of respect. And I kept getting in and out, and Luhan's finally like, well, you've become Uncle Mark.
Uncle Mark.
And he would say, I'm not going to be able to say it now. Wera mure And I'm like, what are you cussing at me in your native tongue? And he's like, no, I just said good morning, Uncle.
Yeah,
So-
you were telling me that you worked on trying to pick up some of the language while you were over there.
Yeah, and you know they speak a whole bunch of languages to the black African folks. That there's, I don't know, 8 or 12 official languages for those folks in Africa. Zulu, various kinds of Zulu, Shona, a bunch of tribes. I can't even say their names. But the main national language is Afrikaans, which is a Dutch-based language. And I just thought it was beautiful. They'd get to talk. I always told them they were jibber jabbering. They'd get to talking to each other, and they really talked it really fast. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, what are we talking about here? And what, you know? And they'd mix their languages. They did that fluently. Just, you know, they'd be speaking English and throw in Afrikaans and maybe some Shona, and it was just like, it was kind of like being on the U.S.-Mexico border where you're talking Spanglish. You know, it was kind of like that.
Yeah, it's that. Most border towns are like that. I know El Paso.
Well, you remember hanging out with the boys at New Mexico State that were local boys. Every other word was Spanish or some bastardized version of Spanish.
Oh me,
it was pretty fascinating. Everything was new. All the critters were new. All the birds were new. You know, it was cool. Every now and again, I'd see like an English sparrow, a house sparrow.
Oh no!
Oh, I know that bird. And they're like, yeah, the little bastards. They're not supposed to be here.
No kidding. Came from the same
And
place.
I'm like, we look at them the exact same way.
Bill, you had something to say?
No, I was just
Because
thinking.
they have like 20 native species of weaver finches,
Oh, that's cool.
which a house sparrow is a weaver finch, but from Europe. And so they had those weaver bird nests everywhere, those big old round nests hanging in the trees, which was way cool. Yeah, it was a fascinating part of the world. It's unfortunate. South Africa right now is, I think it's a powder keg. It's just waiting to go off. They have a lot of white ranchers and farmers that get murdered, them and their families, and all their stuff taken, and and they're only 15% of the population, and so all of them have like a to-go bag packed, and Botswana is real stable, and it's right there, you know, just to the northwest, and they're always ready to like make that leap and go to Botswana if they have to. And then Zimbabwe, which is to the northeast, is it's at some level of unrest, and there's a lot of illegal immigration that occurs from that direction into South Africa. And so we got to see a little bit of that occurring where the South African Army was up on the border on the Limpopo River with automatic weapons and camouflage and berets, and they had people in tow that had crossed the border. And I don't know what what the system is that they deal with that, how they deal with that, if they just send them back or shoot them, or I don't know.
So much war in the central part of Africa that I'm sure there's a lot of that going on. I mean,
But it's, this is Southern Africa, so it's not like Congo or Rwanda or that part of the world. It's still, you feel a little bit of it. When you're out in the rural areas, it's not much, but around the towns, it gets kind of tricksy.
Yeah, I've read a little bit about that. That'd be a topic for some other evening or something. But it's I've known some folks that live there. I went to school with a couple of guys from South Africa in my career, and I used to keep in touch with one of them. He and his family, he had a wife, and I think they had two little girls, and they had his in-laws lived in or had a ranch in what was Rhodesia.
That's what
Zimbabwe
now. Yeah. Anyway, they had a place when it was still Rhodesia up there, and I don't know if they still have that or not. But he worked for Botswana Airlines, and I don't even know if that still exists. I can't even say it now. But anyway, he worked for the. Well, I said airlines. I guess that is who he worked for. Either that or it was a corporate bird. I'm not sure. But anyway, he talked about going up, into that country. And this was 30 years ago. And
it's the most stable, but I think Namibia too. Those two countries are the most stable governments, and peaceful on the continent, quite frankly. Kenya's not too bad, I hear, but yeah, it's just different,
Yeah, it is. It's a whole.
It pays to keep your head on a swivel. You're in town or whatever. But like my tracker, my Amo, his family lived in Aldays in a little town about 20 miles from the ranch. And he had 9 kids and 4 grandkids, and he wasn't old enough to have 9 kids and 4 grandkids, but we stopped one day by his place. Miami needed to give his wife something, and of course he'd been on safari for a couple weeks, and these kids hadn't seen him, and they come pouring out of that property, and they were crawling all over Lujan, and he opened the door, and they're just like piled into the vehicle with us, and just cute kids, grinning and happy, and yeah, it was. And it seemed like the people were pretty industrious. Everybody I saw they were doing stuff, There wasn't a lot of sitting about, and but then if you go into town like on a Friday night, it gets kind of Western in there, I guess. So
everybody rides into town for the weekend.
Yeah, and the boys went into the couple of the PHs and a couple of hunters went into town one evening just to grab some supplies, and they unfortunately, the folks had been into the Pumba beer, and they were just laying all over in the roads and passed out, and the they call their bumpers on their vehicles boom bars, boom bars, but bars, and you just drive real slow, and boom, you hit one, and boom, you hit another one. I mean, you know they're standing up and they just walk in front of your vehicle while you're driving, and it's just like, and they just bump them a little bit, and then it's crazy.
I'll be right back. Oh, I just need to stretch a minute.
Yeah, Tina, it's something they make locally that's all over most of Africa. That's very high. It's kind of a homemade kind of a deal. And
Oh. Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask if you guys can hear me. I think you can. Anybody has any questions, by all means, feel free to ask. This would be a good time to do it. And even if it's a squirrel, I mean, African moonshine, probably not that strong in, but probably stronger than stuff you normally drink around here. I don't know how they do it, but I don't know, Phil, do you know much about how they make ale down that way?
No, I don't. That's, first distillation's probably all they, I doubt that they know what thumpers are.
well, and it's homemade stuff. I mean,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But, you
and
do one distillation and then you run it through another distillation when you're making moonshine. That's what a thumper is. And that boosts the alcohol content.
they in parts of Africa, they guys would get all hopped up on this stuff and wake up and maybe part of their body was missing because a hyena got them. But
Yeah, I've actually read some of those stories too. That's a pitfall of living in a country where it's not safe just about anywhere to fall down drunk because
something might eat you.
Something just might carry you off.
Yeah, Robert Rurik talks about that where they'd get eaten by half their face gone or something from a hyena, but they always claimed that it was Simba that did it, not a hyena. It was like socially unacceptable to get bitten by a hyena, but okay if it was a lion.
Well, if it'd been a lion, they would have carried him off.
I woke up in time to fight him off.
Yeah, I mean, who wants to brag about getting eaten up by a hyena? I mean, come on. Let's face it, that's not the most.
But they got feet about that big around there.
You sent me 2 photographs, and like I said, we'll look at those next week. But I think maybe you sent me one for sure. You sent me one with what looks like a cow print or a buffalo.
It's a buffalo.
Well, that's why, and it was bigger than your hand, or as big.
Yeah, way bigger than my hand.
But did you send me one of a cat track too early on? Maybe not.
No, I think it was a hyena track.
Okay.
Which are not canids. They're more closely related to cats than they are dogs.
Yeah, they're another one of those.
They're feliforms. They're I don't know what you'd call them. I don't know enough about their biology, but they are not dogs, and their feet look a little different than a dog print. But then we saw, jackals, blackback jackals. We saw one. He went running out of a great big flock of guineas. And he took off running. I'm like, there goes a coyote. I mean, that's what it looked like.
Oh, man. I had another question. I had another question in my head. Now I can't remember what I was going to ask you or comment upon.
Well, you said you wrote these down.
Well, I did, but we pretty much run to the end of the trip because we combined some of that in the middle. So I wanted to leave time just to bullshit.
So one of the days we went up to a national park that's just north of the property.
Not Kruger, though, right?
Boonboy, which I like saying because it sounds cool. and it's up on the Limpopo River, and it was just full of critters, lots of zebras and elephants. And we saw one herd of elephants, it was 45. And we're driving around looking for elephants, and we saw a couple in the distance. I'm like, oh, look, elephants. And they were a couple 100 yards from the truck over in the thorn scrub. And Lujan goes, oh, we'll see elephants like right beside the truck before this trip's over. And I'm like, okay. And so we go down on the river, and it was a cool day. It was overcast. And,
Welcome back, Dave.
And we're looking and we're looking and we're looking and we're seeing all these critters, but no elephants. And we go around we get off the river bottom and we go around this corner and are heading kind of back up into the hills. And Shauna and there's 3 wildlife professionals in the truck. Myself and Terry Crickmore, both wildlife biologists, and Lujan, the professional hunter. People that looked at animals their whole lives. And my wife's sitting there and she goes, well, there's an elephant. And it was 10 yards from the road or less. And it was a great big old bull that had broken both his tusks. And he was just a big, gorgeous thing, and she's like, well, right there's an elephant. And we had all missed it.
Beware the elephant in the room, because if you don't see him, he's going to stomp your toes.
It's funny how those critters blend in over there. Like there's a lot of rock. There was a lot of big gray rocks in that country that they look like, sort of. And but like giraffes, they'll stand in the thorn scrub and the taller stuff, and you just don't see them. And it's like this great big ginormous animal. It's like, look, there's like 5 giraffes standing right there, and but initially you didn't see them. Their spots break it up, and they just look. They blend in way better than you would think. So do zebras. They get over in the grass and the thorn scrub, and all those stripes are distracting your eye.
Yeah, they just go invisible.
You just have to intentionally be looking. I mean, you have to focus to be able to see a lot of that stuff.
That's kind of, well, that's a squirrel. But do you remember those? They were kind of popular. You'd see them in magazines and different things back in maybe late 90s, or early aughts. But you'd look at it and you had to let your eyes get unfocused.
Magic eye.
And then you could see an image and the dots and stuff. It was in there.
Yeah.
But until you allowed your eyes to refocus on something that wasn't obvious, you couldn't see it. And I mean, animals are a bit like that. They can blend in, and even if you are looking and know what you're looking for, sometimes you still don't see them. But that gives some advantage. But you need to be able to find them like that. And
it's like a gemsbok. The thing's as big as an elk or an oryx, if you will. Great big giant straight horns over their head. They're at least as big as a bull elk, and they've got that counter shading coloration on their face and the bottom of their body, and your eye is focused on maybe just that and not the animal, and they can stand out there in the open. It's like, oh heck, there's a gemsbok. It's just like it's fascinating to me, that visual distraction. But there was a lot of cool little things over there. We saw banded mongoose and black-tipped mongoose. And they love all those people over there love mongoose because they kill cobras or mambas. And There
And
was
are
a
they
whole
native?
there was a
Are they
whole
native
family
there?
of those things living underneath the lodge, the banded mongoose, and the dogs were always trying to get at them.
I guess you just welcome a mongoose in under your house for or two if you could get them.
Yeah.
It makes then. Are they native there? Those particular mongoose?
Yeah, they have like 5 or 6 species. We only saw 2.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if they all came out of Asia or.
No, they're all native there.
Okay, good. That's good.
India's got its own version, but it's not. They're I don't know which species they have up there in India, but they are a dime a dozen in South Africa. Pretty cool to see them.
Well, let's see what time it is.
I thought John said dove because there's a lot of doves. He said Dave.
Dave, yeah. Do they have a white wing or a mourning dove like we do, or
They have what looks like a Eurasian collared dove or an African collared dove, but it's a Cape turtle dove. It's got a black band on the back of its neck.
cool.
That was the biggest dove we would see, and then there were laughing doves, which are really cool, and these emerald spotted doves, which had these looked like emerald paint on their wing, just in spots. And then this really cool little dove called a Namakwa dove, which the males have like a black face and throat. It was fascinating. And then we had these birds with a big gray crest that would come into water holes, and they call them go away birds.
Go away birds.
And that's what they say. Only they just say away, away, and it'd get kind of annoying. They'd come in and because they're like magpies or whatever, like, hey, look, there's a guy right there.
Yeah.
So everything's on edge when it comes to the water. Yeah, Tina, you're right. They have laughing doves instead of mourning doves.
Okay, John or Dave, you're gonna have to explain this. How you're a duck now? You didn't move to Oregon? Oregon's kind of a line from a movie or a word from a movie. I don't know. It sounds like you had a great trip, though.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Magic.
Do what?
The weather was perfect the entire time. It was, like I said, 70s and 80s for a high and 50s for lows. And
Oh, I hear Shauna's phone. That's what I'm hearing.
yeah, duck.
Hello.
The well, crap. That duck took that thought right out. Something somebody else said.
Yes, Diana.
Well, that was maybe that's what I was going to say. When it was time to come home,
Didn't want to.
I was talking to Mark's daughter, just off and on, texting off and on, kind of during the time that they were gone, and probably the most she's ever spoken to me. But anyway, I asked her, towards the end of the trip, I said, "Have you talked to your dad or Shauna?" And I said, "Are they ready to come home, or how's it going?" And she said, "Well, I think Shauna might be ready to go home, but." She said, "I think Dad could stay over here." He said he wanted another year. But you did have a reason to come home, and that was a grandbaby you hadn't seen.
Which was grand. It was, yeah.
So there was a draw.
We stopped in Green River on the way home and met Miss Absorka, and Grandma got a hold of her, and it was like she might not put her down.
Well, I guess this makes her bad grandma since she got there second. We used to kid about that. The first moms that got to the nursery to see the grandkids, they were kind of the good grandma, and the other one you got to make out being the bad grandma somehow.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Which is not true, I know. But I think the point was they thought somebody was trying to steal more time. They thought they deserved more time with the baby or something. But,
well, the mother-in-law has been pretty much moved in since the child was born and before. And I know our son is ready for her to go home.
And does she live in Casper now?
No, she bought my old place down here, down the river.
That's right. Yeah, she's a local.
Well, she's a Californian that ain't.
I was gonna say sorta.
She ain't seen winter yet, so I can't wait for that.
Oh, she's not overwintered.
No.
Oh no, well she's not. Yeah, she's still Californian then. I don't think she's gonna get the count being a native.
She was born and raised in Huntington Beach. She'd never been anywhere like this place. So
let me know if she ever decides.
She got a rude awakening's what she's got.
Yeah, I bet.
When the drifts are 5 feet deep in her driveway, she'll maybe figure something else out, but we'll see.
Oh well.
She's stuck at home for a week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tina, she is. If she ever stays through one, she'll be ready. I mean, she'll be in for a shock, all right. Huntington Beach area, Southern California for.
Maybe she'll buy us a big tractor.
Well, there you go. Maybe she will. That'd be a good thing. Yeah, that's another thing, guys. I need help on that too. I need help to decorating or redesigning all this behind me, and but I need, I've got to figure out. I've got this sort of a conundrum that some may or may not agree with, but it is to me. I'm trying to figure out what Brenda and I need something here in the yard to move stuff around, like bags of dirt or just dirt, and which we can't handle anymore very much. I mean, a bag of dirt just about
you need a spider with a tilt.
Well, now that's a thought.
A spider with a tilt bed trailer.
Well, that's a thought. I didn't think about a spider. I guess that'd be one way.
And a PTO shaft and a little bush hog.
PTO shaft. I don't know if I can get that.
They gotta make one.
I wish. Yeah, I mean, I've thought about a 4-wheeler to get between the buildings and move around stuff like that, but that's not as useful as a lawn tractor might be, because then we could mow the yard, and the money saved from that would just, pay for the lawnmower. I don't know. I'm not sure, but I'm still climbing steps and doing things here that I had hoped would be changed by now, but apparently this father-in-law doesn't get that kind of treatment. But anyway,
this takes time.
Yeah, it does. And one of my favorite lines from the movie Over China was, "Remember, my son, the ox may be slow,
but the earth is patient."
So I'm an ox and I'm slow.
That's a great movie. That's a great.
I hadn't seen that.
I Rode to China.
I Rode to China. That was it. I can't either. You and I probably got to talking about it for something. I don't know what the topic was, what got us chasing that squirrel, but I think I finally found that movie, but I'm not sure it's on any streaming networks at the moment that I could pick it up and watch it. It's out there somewhere, I know, but but anyhow, that was a good movie. That was I don't know when that came out. I think we were still in Nashville. I think it might have been late 80s when that came out, or mid 80s even. Phil, do you remember going to see that ever?
Yeah, I thought we went and seen it when it was at the theaters. But,
Yeah, well, I do too. I think we did. And Joe Mama went with us, or went with me, or we all went together, or something, because I remember going to see it with him. I'm pretty sure.
yeah, it's probably that cinema over there at Hickory Hollow Mall.
Yeah, and that was but that was that was a whole nother. That was almost 2 lives ago. Actually, that might be 3 lives ago.
Well, I'm going to go.
You're going to go play in the garbage.
The pickup truck. So,
well, it's time for me to get off here. I'm getting about to can't talk. So, but next week, or not next week, we'll talk. But sometime in the future, we'll do a safari photo trip with Mark, and who knows? Maybe Shauna would sit in the background and not show her face, and she could tell some of her pictures.
well, she took wonderful photographs. She's better at that than I am. And
did you carry? You ever carry a real?
And she's got her camera's quite a bit better than my old cell phone camera. Her cell phone camera is a better quality camera. Well, she bought this phone just because it had good photography skills. So.
Well, they've certainly. I mean, I never would have dreamed a cell phone or a mobile phone or whatever the hell we would have called it back in the day. I don't know what we would have, how we would ever figured that part. Being able to, do that kind of take pictures with that is. I mean, I still would rather have a good camera, but some cell phone camera quality has gotten so good that they can do a lot of stuff with them. I mean, some of the Samsungs, of course, iPhones brag about theirs quite a bit, but I don't know what stands today, but a lot of people shoot video and shoot shows, live streams, with Samsung phones. I mean, because of the clarity and it's again a whole new world. But anyway, Carol, thanks for coming. I hope you guys are having a good summer so far. I hope, well, you may be teaching school, but hope everybody's all right up that way. Diana, I don't know. You tell Maple Donut we missed him, and he owes us all an extra dozen of local donuts next time.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Tina, always watching. Thanks again, as always. High Road to China came out in '83. So that's about when we went to see it, Phil.
Yeah.
And who else is maybe in here? I don't know if Dave's still here or John. I don't know if you're still here. If you are, thanks, buddy. Ian, good to see you, Ian. It's been too long, buddy.
Too long.
So everybody that doesn't have to go haul trash, have a great weekend. And those of us who are about to haul to the dump, so long.
So long.
Anyway, see you, buddy. Thanks, Phil, for always coming in. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. See you later.
Mm-hmm.
So bye, guys. I'm going to cut that off. Oh, I should have done this. So Phil wouldn't have been thinking he was making funny faces. All right, guys. Thanks a ton. And like I say, we'll have some more pictures. I don't know what would photographic quality, and maybe keep be better, be a good story. It will be a good story. Probably hear some of these twice, but Mark has some. It was a hunting trip, and Mark has some interesting stories to tell. So anyway, thanks for being here, guys. If anybody's still out there, see y'all again soon. and watch the creek. If they rise, you're in trouble. But I shouldn't say that.